Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. This is your Erik Ten Hag press conference reaction for FC20. It's a new injury setback for Luke Shaw. It's also frustration from Ten Hag about the constant Rashford criticism. He wants that to stop. He's spoken about the importance of the Europa League in comparable to top four and why it might be a better chance for Champions League football. Also been speaking about the goal issues at Manchester United, and we've heard from Mazraoui as well, who has given us some quotes as well to get into. So lots to get into on the show this morning. Well, I say this morning, apologies. We were meant to be live at just after 11 o'clock. But as things do, as I'm sure you know, these things can, with the best will in the world, overrun. And there was problems with that. I mean, one of the big frustrations was that we had 11 minutes of questions from Dutch journalists. And to be honest with you, I'm not going to bring you anything from that because I could summarise it with 11 minutes of questions with this. Erik Ten Hag likes FC20. I mean, it was just literally 11 minutes of crap, if I'm being honest. And look, welcome to our Dutch colleagues, but your questions were absolutely shit. We're Manchester United. We're a big club. We've got loads of questions to be asked about all sorts of things. And yeah, Erik Ten Hag supports FC20. How many times can we ask that question? Very, very disappointing because there was a lot of... We didn't get to ask a question of Ten Hag. We got to ask a question of Mazraoui, but we had... some good questions to ask Ten Hag that didn't get asked, which is just frustrating. But, you know, a lot of other journalists didn't get to ask stuff, to be fair. The headline stuff for you, though, is Luke Shaw. This is what Erik Ten Hag had to say about Luke Shaw. This didn't come from a Dutch journalist, funnily enough. They were more interested in, you know, what do you think about FC20, as I said. But... this is what Ten Hag had to say about Luke Shaw and his availability. He said, I think it's probably a chance that he's going to be back training before the international break, but I can't say it's 100% sure. The plan is just to be back before the break, but as I say, I can't be sure on this. It could be shortly after the break. And what we're talking about here is not being back for the first team. We're talking about being back in training. So he's not back training on grass yet at the moment. And as I said, the updates I've had from a couple of sources over the last few weeks is that you ask about Luke Shaw getting back into training and you get laughed at. So yeah, Luke Shaw hopefully going to be back late next week, training, but might be after the international break. So we're not going to see Luke Shaw playing for Manchester United until the back end of October, are we? Maybe November. I would say the back end of October. So, you know, I don't think any of us are shocked at this point. But I think if I'd said to you when Luke Shaw started for England in the Euros final that he won't play football again until the end of October, you'd have absolutely gone, what are you talking about? And yes, that is the reality. Absolute joke. Absolute joke. And I don't think... Look, from what I've been told, I don't think Manchester United are very happy either. I don't think they are. So I don't think we're speaking out of turn as fans to say that we're very, very frustrated with the way that this was handled over the summer and why did he go and play for England. But we've had that chat many, many times before. There's not a lot we can do about it. Obviously, there's a very good left back there. Marcus says Shaw is an injury prone as my gran on ice. Yeah, not a hell of a lot we can do about it, is there? But that's the update in relation to Luke Shaw. Not back in training yet. Hopefully back in training next week, but if not, just after the international break. And at some point in the future, he will play for Manchester United again, is the expectation. He was also asked about the Rashford stuff again. I'd like to... we had a question lined up about Bruno, so we're not in the press conference for Premier League games. So, you know, if there is any journalist out there, the question we wanted to ask Erik Ten Hag was, you've rotated a lot of players recently, which is obviously a good thing for your squad. Is Bruno Fernandes a player that is up for rotation, or as captain, do you see him as too important for that? It's a very layered question because it's a nice question, but it gets us that question as, is Bruno undroppable? So we didn't get the question about Bruno, unfortunately, but maybe somebody could ask that very question on Friday ahead of the Spurs game. But what we did get is a question about Marcus Rashford. And basically, Erik Ten Hag says, I don't understand the criticism. I don't understand the story. people are entitled to an opinion, but they are not entitled to bring speculation. If I give an explanation, they have to trust my words, so it's not right to speculate. And what he's saying is, he was asked about Marcus Rashford before the game against Crystal Palace. He said it was rotation, and then people speculated about all sorts of problems. So Ten Hag, again, reiterating that he's not happy about that sort of stuff. And why would you be? You know, why would you be? You can't just speculate without evidence, and certainly we don't have any evidence that there's been any fallout or any issue with Marcus Rashford. And as I said, John Stones said after the Man City game at the weekend that he was disappointed not to start against Arsenal. I'm sure Marcus Rashford was disappointed not to start against Crystal Palace, but a manager must manage and he must rotate without speculation about fallings out or any other bollocks. So I think Erik Ten Hag assessing that is absolutely spot on. Got a couple of quotes for you coming in around Mazraoui that we will give you in a few minutes' time as well. But let's carry on with what Erik Ten Hag had to say. He was asked about the new Europa League format. Of course, we don't really want to be in the Europa League, but there's a new Europa League format. There's a new Champions League format. And effectively, you play 8 games now instead of 6. He was asked about the format and what he thought about the volume of games, considering some players have complained. He said there are too many games and there are too many competitions. It's very, very clear about that. There is a limit to how much players can play. And it's not good for football when you're playing too many games. The players are overloaded, but maybe it's good commercially. And he was then asked about rotation again and whether with so many games rotation is important. And he said, look, and I think this was a great point by Ten Hag because it fits into the Rashford thing. He said, rotation, fine, but I pick a team with my coaches that's the best 11 for that game. At that moment, I pick the best 11 for that game. And that can be fitness levels, it can be form, it can be a lot of things. But what we do is for each game is we pick a best 11. Now, some people would say, well, that's bollocks because we're not picking, you know, if Maguire plays tomorrow night, that's not our best 11. But what Ten Hag has is what you have when you're doing your Football Manager or your EAFC or whatever like that. He's aware of fitness levels, he's aware of fatigue, he's aware of sharpness, he's aware of people needing a bit of game time, he's aware of what they're doing on the training pitch. And I think that's what happened on Saturday. I think he looked at that team and for some reason felt that Garnacho was in a better place than Rashford, felt that Eriksen was in a better place than Ugarte and Casemiro, and felt, more importantly, they were the right people for that pitch. And you know, you've got to look at it, haven't you? Mojo says, with all due respect to Luke Shaw, this has now become another Phil Jones saga. It's about time we started looking for other options. This is now absolutely critical. Otherwise, we will run Delo and Mazraoui to dust. It's a great point by Mojo. And ultimately, if you're not reliable, you can't be consistent. Juan says, Haaland threw the ball at Gabriel's head and cursed at Jesus on camera. No action taken. No action taken. Rooney got suspended for the same in 2011. Can you speak on this? I want to be heard. This is bad for football. I'm doing a video on this on That's Football this afternoon, actually, Juan. I wasn't going to mention the Rooney thing, but I've took a note of it. I mean, it's not for now, but what I would say is we're sending people off for kicking the ball away, but we're not booking people for throwing the ball at somebody's head when they're not looking. I mean, welcome to the Premier League, everybody. The inconsistency is unfathomable. So you can basically assault somebody because, you know, what hurts more? A slap round the face or a ball being thrown at the back of your head? So you can assault somebody when they're not aware of it and not get booked, but you kick the ball away and you're getting sent off. Madness. Absolutely madness. But anyway, let's carry on with this. So we've spoken about the Luke Shaw thing, haven't we? That's absolutely fine. The plan is to get him back before the international break, but I can't be 100% sure. It could be shortly after. 20, yeah, loads and loads of questions about FC20, which we're just not interested in at all. I mean, I really want to beat them now after all those questions. There was also a question about the ambitions in the Europa League. He says there. So basically, what he was asked is, He was asked about whether the whether the Europa League is a better route for the Champions League, considering the race for top four is very competitive. And he said there are more roads to achieve the target we want this season. Most difficult, probably, that is in the end a knockout stage, but we don't look too far ahead. We have to go game by game. It's a target and a road we want to go down. And I thought this was a very, very good question, because when you look at the Europa League and when you look at the top four, both of these things will give us what we need, which is we must have Champions League football in May. I don't know whether Robert McCormack's in the chat, but I'm sure he would agree. Starter football is going to be important. Winning's obviously important, but we must have Champions League football in May. We must, absolutely. We can't be out the Champions League with Manchester United. It's embarrassing. It's not Ten Hag's issue. It's been Man United's issue for the last decade. We must be in the Champions League. We have two opportunities. A lot of clubs will have one. We've got two bites to get into the Champions League. The amazing thing for me is, and I've never really quite understood this, is that Arsenal could finish fifth, lose the Champions League final, and not be in the Champions League next year. But if you're in the Europa League, you get a chance to qualify for the Champions League. I like it, but Arsenal don't get two shots at the Champions League. They get qualification and winning it, I suppose. But winning the Europa League is easier than winning the Champions League. So it's a good opportunity for Manchester United. We've done it before with Jose Mourinho when we beat Ajax. To which the question... I'm going to do a poll on this, actually. If you're not watching live, by all means, just get your comments in. But I want to know what's easier. Top four, win Europa League. Because I think Ten Hag answered this question very, very well. Because he basically said, at the moment, one might look harder than the other. And that's true. At the moment, top four looks really difficult for us because we're mid-table. We've lost a couple of games. Villa look good. Spurs are decent. Chelsea look good. Brighton are decent. Newcastle are decent. There is another club I always forget in the race for top four. Oh, it's us. No, there is somebody else, I'm sure. I can't think who it is off the top of my head. But yeah, the race for top four looks very, very difficult at the moment, and the Europa League looks quite easy because look at the shit in our group that we've got to play in the league. But in March, we'll have played 30 games. And when you've played 30 games, maybe Spurs aren't there anymore. Maybe Villa have fell away. Maybe Chelsea have gone into crisis. Maybe in March, you're sat in fourth place with a 5-point cushion, and yet you're only in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. And suddenly, top four looks the best route. So I'd be very careful about saying what is easier. Because at the moment, winning the Europa League looks easier. But in March, it might be that top four is easier. So I think that it's just impossible to predict at the moment what's going to be easier and what's not going to be easier. But what is absolutely essential is that you're in the quarterfinals of the Europa League come April, and that you're in the top four race come April, and then maybe you can make a look at it. But look, I think it's very interesting, and we the bottom line is we have to take both seriously. I think there has been times, certainly when I've been doing the United Stand, and if anybody can point to the years, I'd love to know. But there certainly has been times when we've had people in the chat or in the comments saying, play the kids in the Europa League, play the shit in the Europa League. And I remember that. I don't remember why, but I do remember it. I think we've disrespected the Europa League a lot more in the past than maybe we have done this year. And Mourinho didn't disrespect it, of course, when he won it. But we have to respect it. But there have definitely been years when we have gone, oh, we should just be playing the crap. It's a hindrance. But I think we've got to go for both. I think the race for top four is so competitive that we have to take this very, very seriously, and we will do. And we should cruise through into the knockout stage in February, and then it gets serious, doesn't it? But by February, I want us to be in the top four race, of course. Good. Well, look, actually, I thought this was a terrible question. Unfortunately, I don't know who asked it. It wasn't the usual suspects, but I don't know who asked this. Basically, they were saying that they actually said these words. Goal difference wasn't very good. Not exact words, but they definitely said this about Højlund. Goal difference last season wasn't great. And the question really is about goals being scored. But as part of the question, they said Højlund didn't do particularly well last year. which I found, I was really hoping Ten Hag was going to, jump on him for that. Højlund didn't do particularly well last year, and are you worried about goals? I thought, hold on a minute. He didn't do particularly well last year. He played in a team that factually created no chances for the striker. Like, factually, it's a graveyard shift. And yet, he still scored goals. I think there's this myth that he had a bad season that's being perpetuated by the media and also a certain section of our fan base. He didn't have a bad season last season. Like, we can sit and have a big, massive show about it. He didn't have a bad season last year. It wasn't a great season, but it wasn't a bad season. And in the context of the season, it was a reasonably decent first season for a 20-year-old who did score some goals and also had no service and played in a team that was absolutely injury ravaged. So this myth question that he didn't have a good season is bullshit. Anyway, Ten Hag said, look, we've created a lot of chances. We have to be better. But, this comes down to putting the ball in the back of the net, effectively. The follow-up question was, is it a mental thing for these strikers and their inability to score goals? Basically doubling down on bullshit. Is it a mental thing why our players aren't scoring goals? Well, what player's not scoring goals? Who is it that's not scoring goals? Is it a mental... We're talking like we've got a striker up front who's missed 20 chances and it's Christmas and he hasn't scored yet. What sort of question is that? Is it a mental thing with our forwards not being able to score goals? Marcus Rashford had 3 goals in 2 games ahead of Crystal Palace. Garnacho had 3 goals in 2 games ahead of Crystal Palace. Rasmus hasn't played this season and, as we know, scored goals last year. So that's 3 players who it's not a mental thing straight away. Xerxes is a brand new signing and didn't start the season in the team. So I think we're pushing this too far in relation to this goal drought. We didn't score in 1 game. We scored 10 in the previous 2. Rasmus is only just back. Xerxes is a new signing. It's always a crisis with Manchester United, isn't it? That's what I'm trying to say. It's always a crisis. Like, we're not going through a goal drought. We drew 0-0 with Crystal Palace. We don't have a mental problem with our strikers, and we don't have an issue with goal difference. Like, we are right at the start of the season. We drew 0-0. We will not draw 0-0 tomorrow, and we will not draw 0-0 against Spurs. And, people will clip that, but we won't. We won't draw 0-0 tomorrow, and we won't draw 0-0 with Spurs. We might not score, but we won't draw 0-0. There'll be goals in those games. It was just a one-off. It was a blip. So, yeah, I don't really get it. Again, it's just a bit of a... Ten Hag said he doesn't like it when people speculate when he's given an answer. I don't like it when people put out false facts. Like, I don't. Can be dangerous putting all our eggs in one basket, says Glenn C. I remember when he was a missed kick away from going out of the Europa in the semi-final in Jose's year. Yeah, cup tournament. I'd rather get top 4 through the league because it's 38 chances to get top 4. You're in control. Cup tournaments, in 1 game, if it's tight, 1 thing can go wrong. Anyway, let me talk to you about what Mazraoui had to say. He was asked about whether Eric Ten Hag... I mean, Beth asked the question of Mazraoui, so I'm giving you her words here. She asked Mazraoui what factor Eric Ten Hag had in him coming to Manchester United, to which Mazraoui said Eric Ten Hag was a big factor in coming to Manchester United. Obviously played with him before, but also the way he plays suits the way Mazraoui wants to play. So, I mean, I think that's a nice soundbite, and it's a very good question from Beth, of course, but it's a very nice soundbite because in a room of journalists that have constantly got their knives sharpened, as we know, it's important to remember that we've signed some good players this summer. And it's really doubly important to understand that some of these players have come to this club because of who our manager is. And one of those players is Mazraoui, who for me is arguably our signing of the summer so far. On the very few games that we've seen, he looks like the most consistent signing. I think he's the one with the most minutes as well. I don't think any of our new signings... Well, Yoro's not played. Agate's not played much. Xerxes didn't start the season. De Ligt didn't start the first game. So Mazraoui's played the most minutes. And I think he's been the most consistent player as well. So I think it's, it's always good to know although we could have figured it out ourselves, that these players came here because of who the manager is and who the club is. He was asked about his transfer fee as well. He says, it's not for me to decide on the fee. I can't really say. That is the negotiation between Man United and Bayern. It works good for me because it was not expensive and I made a good start, so it's easy for the fans to say I'm a good buy this summer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the context of the question behind the transfer fee because I think we've got an absolute bargain there. I mean, he's not 31, is he? He's not 29. He's basically just gone past his mid-20s, and we've paid £16 million for him. I mean, it's an absolute steal in the modern market, and you know, fair play for Mazraoui for actually saying that. You know, the fee, I've started off well, and the fee's not that much, so actually it could be a benefit for me. He also said he had 2 seasons playing at Bayern and felt he needed another step based on a lot of reasons. I felt okay there, but I had a feeling I could be more comfortable somewhere else. Manchester United came in. I don't think I have to explain why I came to such a big club. Exactly. And he also said that he expects his level will only continue to rise the more time he spends adapting to life at Manchester United. And he also said that De Ligt coming with him is obviously a big boost as well, because obviously they played together at Bayern, and it helps him and De Ligt adapt. And I think the big thing for me with Mazraoui is it's always good when I mean, we spoke about it a few days ago, didn't we? But it's always good when the player themselves says there's more to come. The longer I'm here, the better I will get, because I actually think Mazraoui so far has shown a lot of ability defensively, but I think there's so much more to come offensively as well. And you know what? I've given him 7 out of 10 in nearly every game. And when we do the player ratings, which we've been doing for years, the sad thing about Man United over the last few years is that we very rarely give 7s. If you in the scale of player ratings, 6 is average, 7 is good, 8 is very good, 9 is excellent, and 10 is perfect, etc. 5 is below average. I would say if we went through the player ratings for certainly the last year, the average player rating is going to be around 5, maybe lower. So we don't actually, and justifiably so, you know, Man United don't get high ratings because we don't get good games. So Mazraoui in his first few games to be averaging 7 is overachieving compared to the rest of the squad over the last 12 months. For him to be saying there's more to come is very exciting, because I think already in him we've got a player that looks like he's going to be that 7 out of 10 every week. And there will be 8s and there'll be an occasional 6, but I don't think there's going to be many 5s. And if you've got a right back that gives you 7 out of 10 most weeks, and then occasionally there's 8s, you're bloody laughing. You're absolutely laughing, because they're not even average. They're good every week. And I think really, really interesting signing here. Mentally sounds absolutely on it. Driven, focused, wants to improve. And he is going to get better. I mean, he's playing in a league he's never played in before. I mean, one of the questions I would have asked him is, what's the difference between the Bundesliga and the Premier League? I'm always obsessed about that, because I think the answer is always going to be, it's quicker, you know, and if it's quicker, you've got to get used to it. And I think that the more he gets adapted to the Premier League, the better he will be. The only fear I have with Mazraoui is the fear I have with any player at Manchester United is the old I word, and it ends in Y, and it's injury. Glenn C, thank you very much for that. Villa are balling, and arguably Chelsea are too, hence why they are above us, even when we had easy fixtures. Spurs are terrible, says top player. Sounds like you're just talking to yourself. He's a working player. He's definitely doing the job. Looking forward to seeing him when he's been here for a while, says Mr. Bossman. And I think, you know what, when you see the negativity in the chat, there is a balanced counterweight to that. You'll see people saying, we should have beat Palace. We've lost 2 games already. We only beat Barnsley and Southampton because they're shit. There's better teams than us, and we're going to struggle. And they might be right. They've got every right to say it, and they might be right. I'd counter it by saying, yeah, but we've got Mazraoui in the team who's going to put a 7 out of 10 in. Onana's making big saves at the moment. Delot's playing well. Martinez and De Ligt are forming a really good partnership. Garnacho, Rashford, Ahmad are looking dangerous. We've got strikers who are making a difference. Rasmus will make a difference, and Xerxes helps the way we want to play. All right, Bruno's a little bit off it, but you know he could be on it like that. Eriksen's playing well. Agate's waiting to come in. We know what Mainoo's all about. We have got good players. I think there is a danger when you're being negative that you're judging United on this, you know, understandable momentum of negativity that's built up over the last 12 months. But this team ain't the team from last year. This team has different things about it. And therefore, some of us look at it and go, I see the signs. I see the sprouts of positivity. And yes, Villa are a good team, but I actually think we might be a good team. And I actually think we might give Villa a good game. Whereas last season, I wouldn't expect us to give Villa a good game, even though I think we did beat them twice last year, which is weird. Thank you. Anyway, right. I think we've just done about that. We had a slow start, but I'm very sure it will get a lot better, says Mr. Bossman. United will improve, says Denton. And Wilbur says, but we can't score goals. Facts. Wilbur, I think you're like that journalist. I think you're a little bit deluded, mate. You're talking about 90 minutes and a 0-0 draw against Crystal Palace, where we probably should have scored 2 or 3. Scored 7 the game before, 3 the game before that. I'm sorry, I'm just not having this we're not scoring goals thing. I think it's absolute nonsense. I think you're taking last season and the last game and you're forming them into an opinion that makes you look knowledgeable. I completely disagree. I don't think we're not scoring goals. I don't think we've got a goal scoring problem. I think we're creating lots of chances, and in one game, we didn't convert them. Even in the Liverpool game when we didn't score, Xerxes should have scored 2. But I don't count the Liverpool game because Liverpool are better than us and deserve to beat us. But I don't think we've got a goal-scoring problem. I really, really don't. Anyway, look, thanks everybody for tuning in. A bit of an early press conference reaction, but I did enjoy it. I liked some of the stuff Ten Hag had to say. Get your comments in below if you didn't get to catch us live. It's not match day today, is it? It's Tuesday. I'm all over the place. But we are back at 8 o'clock tonight, of course. And if anything goes on before then, we'll certainly do a reaction to that as well. Take care, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And Isaac says you've got rose-tinted glasses on. That's what meant to happen when you support your football club, mate. Just a little bit of a note. You're meant to back your club. So, yeah, I do wear rose-tinted glasses. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.